Philosophy class is lit today, Professor Bastian. I think I stumbled through it, but basically that's been rattling up here because I knew that the spellstorm was like a thing. It was like it was a concept. There's an what is it, an allegory or a metaphor? Metaphor. Allegory, no, it's not an allegory. It's a metaphor. There's a metaphor to Spellbreak that has been obvious to me for a long time, but I couldn't quite put it into words, and I think I just did. There's a new thing.
Hey there, Hotshot. You've certainly kept yourself busy these past few weeks.
Okay, so another theory for you and your ever-excited scholars. Quincy, seems that the arcane energy within the spellstorm fluctuates. Understood. The leading theory is that it's somehow connected to breakers. So I'm going to review experiments starting with the type of gauntlet you use. I'm trying to think about this from like lore. Like, what does this mean for lore? So obviously the past couple weeks they've been talking about how breakers can are magical conduits, you know, in like the actual term conduit, you know, something that channels the energy source, you know, and in this case the energy source is the spellstorm, which is like a magical, I mean, it's a spell, it's the spellstorm because it's not magic itself, right? It's just the spellstorm is like the flowing energy, which I think it's related, it's pretty much synonymous with like magic and the arcane. I think that's basically, it's a storm of arcane force, essentially. And breakers are conduits for that arcane force. What does that mean? Or like what? Right, because Spellbreak has this theme in it. Spellbreak has this through line where if you look at the lore, there are people in the world of Velnor. Is Velnor the continent? I think Velnor is the continent, but it might be the world. There are people in the world who are fearful of magic and the power that it wields. And then there are breakers who are our protagonists who are who use their magical practitioners. They harness the magic runs through them, which is, you know, beautiful. I've got the magic in me and stuff like that. The magic goes through them and it's with them and of them, and they express it, which is like I think it's ultimately a metaphor of like you've got an X factor, a power within you, a free will, you can do, you know, you can express on your world, and or like a personal liberty type of thing. It's like, you know, this thing that we call Spellbreak it's a big metaphor for people with the power of free will and determination setting off into the world to do their thing. And there are a lot of people, there are big institutions that are deviously mistrusting of that personal liberty, you know? That's the vow keepers. The vow keepers are distrusting of magic in the world, and that's you know, like they're distrusting, and it's for unknown reasons. It's difficult to understand exactly why they're mistrusting. There are like, they will say things like magic is dangerous, but what's the evidence? The evidence that they cling to for that, first of all, has been obscured in time. Secondly, what we do know of it through like Garrick's journal, his reading from Neela Kay and stuff like that, is that back in the Lost Wars, when, you know, when the last time there was a big struggle, the last time there was a flare of the spellstorm, like 100 or so years ago, there was this unknown force. The identity of the force that opposed the Highlands has been obscured to time, but there was this unknown force that was attacking the Highlands, and generally sought to like bring the spellstorm and sow discord and discontent into the Highlands. You had the people of the Highlands fighting that force. It was a big war. And it is said that a commander of those forces, named Aura Fernfall, was the first to was of a group that believed that magic was a dangerous tool, and rejected the use of magic in her under her command as a way to subvert whatever force was coming at them. And it's said that when she did that, the war completely changed and the Highlanders wiped out the encroaching force. And from that, the people of the Highlands reasoned that magic was a dangerous, destructive tool that they wanted no part of, and they sought to outlaw it. And they did so with the forming of the Vow Mandate, creating the Vow Guard and the Vow Keepers. That was part of forming the Five-Hand Alliance as well between the five kingdoms of the Highlands. So you have Halcyon, Dustpool, Bogmore, Banehelm, one more, Himwood. Yeah, those are the five. I'm pretty sure Himwood is the last one. I'm pretty sure. I might be wrong there. So all of that, collected, Vow Keepers started. That became the mandate of the land, is that they didn't use magic and blah, blah, blah. Magical use and breakers were seen as dangerous, outlawed, blah, blah, blah. Now the Spellstorm has happened, the fracture. The Spellstorm has come it came in an event called the fracture. When the land, basically an apocalypse happened as the Spellstorm came in. Now, with the culture, the civilization of the Highlands in disrepair, broken, shattered, tattered, torn to bits, people have taken refuge in Longwatch, which I don't think Longwatch is the starter island, but it might be, but I'm not sure, but it might be. I think it's more likely that Longwatch is like on the continent, in the Highlands, but just kind of off the map to the southwest. But it also might be the starter island. I'm not sure. The starter island might just be like a breaker encampment outside of Longwatch. But now, with all that happening, you have these breakers who lived sort of like under the civilization have now appeared a little bit more in force, and they've started collecting the wreckage of that civilization. And as we're investigating through chapter 1, it's, people are starting to question the validity of that long-held truth that magic is dangerous and it will only sow, discontent and destruction. Now people are starting to think about how we can use breakers to help the Spellstorm. And the latest feature of that is that that breakers are these like magical conduits, or these arcane conduits for the Spellstorm, and they somehow pull energy from the Spellstorm to use it. And that is an allegory for our own personal free will by means of stuff. Make sense? I don't know. I don't think we have the full picture here, but that's basically the setup of Spellbreak, is that you have this civilization, this society, this culture that rejects magic because it is dangerous. It will sow discord and destruction in the people. But the evidence for that is not conclusive. So now you have people investigating what exactly the truth of magic and stuff. And we're finding that the story that we've known, the truths that we have held sacred, are not necessarily true. Interesting, I think. But I think that's where is it personal freedom, something like that, where that comes in. We can think of those traditions as, there are certainly traditions in our real world you could call it perhaps, capitalism or just the way of the world, power in general. There is a natural power that we all have access to that we can express. Power like, the big, power, like power politics. There is a power that we all have access to that we can express in our own personal lives. And if we do that, this is it. And if we do that collectively, if we band together and thinking about our own personal power in mind, if we band together and channel that power, then we can do something. But that same personal power that we have in ourselves to do something good can also be channeled in very dark and dangerous ways. And that's where the fear comes in about this spellstorm or this power that we have. That's where it comes in, and it's dangerous and it's scary and it can be used to mal effect. But there's also a power which I think is also potentially useful and also potentially very damning in rejecting that personal power that we all have, in pushing it, in keeping it at bay, in telling it to back off, The vow mandate, demanding that we don't use this power that we all have access to for the good of the people, for each other. And of course, on some level, that's true, and there should be, there are laws for a reason. It helps our collective society, it helps give us structure. And wherever you go in the world, in any human civilization, there are, rules and regulations and laws, whether spoken or written down, that define that culture and allow it to function in a proper way. But when that sort of power, when that collective power that seeks to align a culture in a certain way goes so far as to limit the personal power that every individual has access to, that's when that power can be dangerous and dark and devious as well. And so in that way, you can see the Spellstorm as power at large, like you would think of in, your college sociology class. And there's no obvious answer. Well, I think there's one thing, one answer, one truth to this, maybe the truth of this, is that we all have, as we are all breakers, we all have that individual power which we're able to express to the world. But there's a good way to do that and a bad way to do that, just as there's a good way to limit or give guidelines to that power, and there's ways to suppress it, suffocate that power. But the truth of the matter is that we all have that power within us that we can express. It's just a matter of how we do it. Kind of nice, right? Welcome to Spellbreak. That's the first time. All right, nice. I did it. That's the first time, because that's been rattling up here for a long time. Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Bastion. I cast spells and talk about philosophy. Philosophy class is lit today, Professor Bastion. True. I hope that wasn't too confusing. I think I got somewhere good with it. I think the last half, I'm probably going to make that into a YouTube video as well, so don't worry about it. I think the last half of it was decent. It made sense and was concise. I think I stumbled through it, but basically that's been rattling up here because I knew that the Spellstorm was like a thing. It was like it was a concept. There's an what is it, an allegory or a metaphor? Metaphor. Allegory, no, it's not an allegory. It's a metaphor. There's a metaphor to Spellbreak that has been obvious to me for a long time, but I couldn't quite put it into words, and I think I just did. Did that make sense? Was that intelligible on some level? I think the last part was good. I think I might have confused all of you with the first half of what I was saying. The last half was good.